Okay.
recording. And then I'm going to go live on Facebook.
Yay! We're
Revving up.
live.
The live stream Zoom is
Can you hear
connecting
from this
browser.
phone? Do I have a
What
lot of
was that?
browsers, or you or me?
I
So your
have a lot of
browser's.
browsers.
Oh, I was gonna say I probably have a lot of them too. I was trying to
Yeah.
think if this thing works, how this little booger little thing works.
Okay. So it is preparing live stream for the meeting, setting up your meeting for Facebook Live. So we are already on Zoom. So for those of you, hello and welcome to day 2 of Realtor Refresh. And while this is still coming up into Facebook, it's giving me a window so I can actually see both. And yesterday it didn't do that. So this is a great tool for me to see live in action. So hello, I am your host, your moderator, Kathy Cross Reese, and welcome to the free 3-day Realtor Refresh Challenge. If you are here, it's because you feel the need for refreshing. Now, I want to go over some administrative announcements that kind of give you an idea of what is going to take place for today. So today we are going over some foundational principles for Realtor Refresh. These happen to be pillars of kingdom principles, but I want to go over some of the bonuses that I have in store for you. Each day I will be giving you homework, and yesterday I provided some homework for you, and even my grandsons did the homework. So don't be afraid to do your homework. Doing your homework is basically going live within the Facebook group and sharing your biggest takeaway. Now, not only do I want you to share your biggest takeaway, but if you go back to yesterday, I'd like you to also introduce yourself. Let everyone know who you are, because this is a community in which we get to share information. It's not just one directional, it's multi-directional. So we learn from each other. I believe iron sharpens iron. And yesterday I went over the foundational pillar, which has to do with ownership. Ownership is the foundational principle. It's one of the kingdom principles. If you're not familiar with kingdom principles, there was a gentleman named Miles Monroe that wrote several books about kingdom principles. And within that book, it graphs different principles in which we as members of the kingdom live by. Now, the first principle of ownership has to do with owning. And so as a short recap, we talked about ownership and stewardship and generosity within one story, which happened to come from the book of Mark 12th chapter of Mark. And so that's kind of a short recap. We went through the story and I shared within that story where you might see yourself or where I might see myself, either as an owner, as a steward, or as a servant. Excuse me. Disclaimer, there is COVID in the house, catch it online, right? So just, I might have to stop and cough a little bit, but I am present. So let me finish the housekeeping announcements before I jump in. I jumped right into ownership. See, I'm so excited to share this information. I just want to go right. But as I digress, there are bonuses. Excuse me. There are bonuses for going live and doing your homework. One of the bonuses is a ring light, something that I think every entrepreneur should have when they go online. I happen to be using one right now. I see some people are wanting to join, so this is my way of multitasking. All right. So ring light is one. The second one is VIP. I want to gift a VIP to someone who would like to know how to set up this production or this challenge that I've set up. And I'll take you backstage to kind of give you all of the bells and whistles on how I was able to do this, because it's exciting. This is an opportunity to share a message online, an opportunity to find like people online, to share messages, and to grow, to train, to strengthen one another, not just for yourself, for others. Okay, so making sure I went over all the administrative announcements. And now I will shift back into my recap from yesterday. As I stated, I talked about ownership, and what I failed to in one case was my backstory on ownership. I happen to be the youngest of three, and I happen to have had a pretty good father. So everybody doesn't have a good father. My father has always, he's passed away, but he had always taught us how to own things, how to own property, how to increase territory. So that was kind of in my bloodlines. So I understood the principle of ownership because we've always owned our own homes. From a time I can remember as a child, a young child, we've always owned homes. So as I became adult, I didn't really understand the idea of being a tenant until I became. So we all have a different perspective on how we come into ownership or how we understand ownership. And it's really a mindset shift. So whether you are a tenant currently, you could see yourself as an owner. Because I do see people that are tenants that take pride and take care of the owner's property as though it was their own. So don't think just because you have the label, I own a property or I rent a property, that that means you're not an owner. And when I speak owner, I'm thinking from a business standpoint, right? Business and from a personal standpoint. We own, God's given us bodies, so it's for us to steward well and to take care of it, right? Okay, so that is my recap and my personal perspective on ownership. Well, today I have a special guest that I'm so excited to have joined me today. And we are going to dive into the second pillar of kingdom principles as it pertains to realtors, Realtor Refresh, because we want to be refreshed. We don't want to be bogged down, right? I mean, life sometimes is challenging. However, we always have a source, right? A source that we can go back to be refreshed. So today I want to welcome to the stage my peer, my comrade in the kingdom, Miss Debra McElroy.
Good afternoon or good ever morning, whatever time may be. Thank you, Kathy. I want to say thank you for the opportunity. Kathy, when you talk about being a realtor, you were my realtor, and it's interesting. I never even thought about getting into the real estate business, but here I am now finding my niche. I did go over what you were talking about, ownership, and I think you gave a great analogy about that ownership as that of being that whether you're a tenant, you own it, and you look at things in the ownership. Today, I want to talk about stewardship. First of all, I want to talk about what stewardship is. Just want to give you a definition. It says stewardship is the job of supervising or taking care of something such as an organization or a property. So right there, that could be anybody, whether you're real estate. I know we're talking about real estate, but put yourself in that mind as that of a stewardship. Now, since we're talking about the kingdom, I want to go back just a little bit from where we've been given that permission to be stewards. And that's found in Genesis chapter 1:29. I'm going to bring it down over to Mark 2. But it says that, see, I have given you every plant to yield the seed that is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree with the seed of the fruit you have for them. So that means God already had given man dominion. He given them stewardship. Another scripture that this one really kind of like set me on fire, because I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I need to be refreshed. I don't have an option. We don't have an option. It says, then the Lord took the man and he put him in the Garden of Eden, and he told him to tend it and keep it. That's stewardship. So the question I have as a realtor, how are you stewarding being an agent? I know that when we talk about stewardship, ownership, think about all the tasks, and I'm going to talk about, I've got some characteristics of what is a good steward. But as a realtor, whether you are a beginning realtor, is that taking that principle, that of you're tending, you've been giving that dominion from God. So I think what we have to understand is we sometimes want to pick up with the world, or whether the world's business, but guess what? In the beginning, God says, here, I need you to tend my land. I need you to tend everything. And just like in the story that you talked about yesterday in Mark, here was this owner. He took care of the land and he stored it. And then guess what? He gave it over to somebody. But he was the owner of it. He tended, and he said he went far away. So that means he entrusted someone to tend that property.
Right.
So let's look at it. This is that when you're meeting a client, whether you're beginning, how are you coming off as the trusted advisor that, you know how many realtors are? What stands you out that makes you different? One of the things that I had, when I got in business, said, you know what, there are, I don't know how many realtors, but guess what? Even for 2022 and 21, there is a major increase of realtors. But here's the thing, what keeps you different from the other one? What stands out that makes someone wants to work with you? The first thing I would say, you want to be a trusted advisor. You want someone, when they meet you, that they feel that you can trust, they can trust you, because guess what? I don't care whether they're buying a $50,000 or $500 or $1 million house. Can they trust you? Because that is an investment. That is the biggest purchase that they would ever make, no matter what place of their economics or whatever.
Right,
they're
right.
trusting you to do that. And so with that, you want to understand, I am a steward. I'm stewarding so many factors of a real estate. You're stewarding the contract. You're stewarding interacting with, as we buyers and sellers. You're stewarding the title company. You're stewarding all of that. You're overseeing, just like this says, you have the job of supervising all of this. And when you put that in the principle of God's entrusting you to do all that, or whether you're in real estate, whatever business that you're in, he's entrusting you to be a good steward to do that. I want to pause and maybe have some questions that you may want to ask, because I can get excited.
I love that. I love the trusted advisor aspect, because we are professionals and they are trusting us, as you said, with the biggest investment of their lifetime. So the question I ask myself is, am I being a good steward? Am I being a good steward of their time? Am I being a good steward of my time? Am I being a good steward in finding the right resources that they have asked for or requested, or the things that they may not even be aware of that I am? So I love that.
Yeah, that's a good key when you said, the first of is setting ourselves apart, being professional. Sometimes we are, as realtors, some people say we're as low as salesmen. No, we want to be professionals, because we're in helping, we're being stewards to help that individual, whatever, to find a home. And that's what you're talking about, educating them to the stages of the financing, the stages of recognizing what they're looking for in a home. Because sometimes, you just said it, they think they may know, and they do. I mean, they have an idea, but you still need to guide them, because they may come in there thinking, I want to buy a $500,000 house, but they only pre-approved. They haven't even did the pre-approval part. So you have to walk through that. So you're stewarding them every step of the way in that process. And it's so important that we understand the demand, and it's a good demand. I don't know about you. I mean, some people get in real estate for all different reasons, but for me, it was something that I found that it was what God's called me for. And because of that, that allowed me to have that, once again, that kingdom mindset, is that I don't see this as a job. I see this that I'm bringing value to the individuals that I interact with. And that's the part, that's the difference, that when we talk about being in the kingdom is, we don't look at it as about, it's all about us. No, it's about, how can I serve you? How can I serve my client better? How can I serve, not trying to get the best deal, but get the deal that my client wants, and that they can say, wow, I have a home. One thing that I tell my clients, because I pay attention to my interactive with them, is I tell them, I can't explain it. When you walk in a home, you will know. Just those little, conversations with them, let's look at these certain things. Right now we're in a busyness where There are a lot of contracts that, hey, there's no contingencies whatsoever. So how are you educating your client to prepare for that? How are you educating, when you walk into a home, look at the water heater, look at the windows, look at the roof, all those things. That's being a good steward, is like, wait a minute, you want to know those things that are important in that process, but also being able to have the ear of God to listen for what they're not saying. And that's one of the parts that makes that's different when we talk about the kingdom, is having that kingdom principle. One thing I want to talk about, the characteristics that identify a good steward. One of them, it says good stewards are committed to selfless service. Are you willing to serve your client to that selfless effort to find them what they're looking for? Number two, a good steward believes in stability. Sustainability. How are you sustaining yourself in this market? How are you getting leads and generating? Because are you making great relationships that individuals want to refer their friends and their family to you? The other one, are you practicing inclusiveness, that you're not being discriminating against anybody? You're there to help whoever looks for a home, no matter what, because there is such a joy of saying to somebody, hey, here's your keys. Oh, that's a joy. And then another good steward.
Okay, you have a lot of gold there. We can't pass up that gold. Let's back up to
Okay.
the selfless service. Okay,
Gotcha.
so when I think of selfless service, I think, okay, I'm not going to keep this deal together, so to speak, so I can get a commission. I'm
Correct.
not going to do anything that is focused on my personal gain and not what's in the best interest of my client. So that's what I think of when I think of selfless service. What do you think of when you think of selfless service?
Same as that, you go that extra mile when you have to sit in for your client. You can always give a good example. I just had one where I think I talked about the deal was falling down. Client didn't want it, wanted to get out of it. So we start looking through the papers. Well, we never got HOAs. So in a sense, that was a way for, the client was able to get out. But the point is that client did not feel comfortable with that deal any longer. So even though there are clause in there, there's also, how do you provide a great service to your client to make them feel comfortable that they're not being scammed or whatever they felt that way. But whether it's not or not, is making that customer or client feel comfortable about that purchase. And I think it's important. And once again, is, the stuff is I don't get caught up in the money. You know what? I always say, if you take care of the client, the money will come. That's just my philosophy. And sometimes
I agree.
but that's one of the things, is you don't get caught up in that, because you get
Right.
caught up in serving your client, bringing value and serving them. And that's the key thing there.
That's rich. And then there was sustainability, right?
Correct.
Sustainability. What do you mean by sustainability?
That can be in two ways. How are you sustaining yourself as a realtor in this business? How is you set up on your as lead generation? Are you interacting with your clients? One of the things, are you going to be one of those agents is, once the deal is done, you're done? Are you keeping in contact with your clients? Good thing for me, I like to do pop-bys. When there's seasons, I like to drive, like right now, will be coming up for Valentine's Day. I think of things based on my clients. What can I drop off their house? I mean, we're in COVID, but guess what? I just drop something off, take a picture, click, text them and say, guess what? Here's something for you. Because that lets them know you appreciate them and that you're remembering them. So those are ways of just sustaining your business. And actually being a good steward over your financing as a business person. Like you talked about ownership, as your dad taught you that. How are you sustaining yourself as building a business and outside of just real estate? So how are you using your money, as I call it, wise? And that's another aspect of that.
Okay, I like that. I like that. So that's sustainability. So when I hear that, I think of beyond the transaction. How are you supporting yourself? Because we're talking stewardship is this second pillar. So I was looking across the street, they're laying a foundation. So I'm thinking, okay, that's the foundation, that's the ownership. The person owns the property. And then what you're talking about, stewardship, they're building that framework around it to sustain what they're going to put in there. So that's what I think of when I think of sustainability. That's rich. And then the third one, you said, I didn't write it down.
That's once again, that's practicing that inclusiveness. You're not
Inclusiveness. Yes.
not
Yes.
you're loving. I mean, that's what the kingdom is about. You're loving,
Yes.
that you're loving. I personally, when I get in relationship with my clients, I automatically tell them you're part of my family. um so it's, letting them feel like, hey,
Right.
they're important, and that's what the kingdom's all about also. And that's a part of a stewardship, because once again, people feels comfortable in being able to trust you in that process. So it may
Mhm.
not, it's all part of stewardship, because you're building a relationship, you're stewarding
Yes.
a relationship, and that's something that you want to continue on.
Yes. Yes. Great. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Didn't want to like slow your
I
roll,
know, I
but
better slow me
it
down.
was, I was like, wait a minute. Hold
And then
on. You
I'll give
can't
you
just,
a few, two more.
okay.
The other one,
Okay.
next one is good steward, embrace innovation and change.
Mm,
Mm. So as being a good steward, it's important that you and I be innovated in the different technology that comes involved in real estate, because once again, you're stewarding and you're getting skillful, that you are representing yourself well. And that's a good example of a character in that piece. And you go with the changes. Right now, who would have thought that, we're doing businesses? I don't know about you, I've done business from Zoom, where I'm doing a
yes.
buyer presentation, on a Zoom, because we're not doing it in person. So those are different
Right.
ways, innovation and changes that we're doing. We're seeing people that are doing, virtual tours, so there's always those innovations. And once again, being a steward, that you're in the trends and what's going on.
I
And
like that you said embrace innovation. You didn't just say do all the things, because there's so many things out there that you can do, and you can get caught up in this or that, moving around, but embrace innovation. Yes, we are using Zoom. There are other technologies that can be
yeah,
used to go online to meet with clients, depending on what devices you have. There's a myriad of ways, but just embrace and lock down on whatever tool it is that works for you, because what works for the other person may not work for you. So
that's right.
I would just add to that, find what works for you and steward that well.
That's right. And the last one, it says a good steward are team players, and they're quick to give others credit. And that can go so many ways. Are you a team player? It's important when you're doing that, because sometimes you just said it. This may not work for you. There's certain things that work for other people. Like I people laugh, but I work better at night. That just works. My mind works better. So I'm being a
Yes,
good
you
steward over
do.
my mind.
Midnight,
You
2
know what?
a.m.
That works for me. I'm stewarding my mind, because that
Right.
works for me, because you try different things, but once again, you're stewarding, your physical part. What works good for you, that works for me. And I think when we talk about just being a realtor, it's the being a steward over everything. When I go thinking of that, I think of Romans 2:12, it says, present your body as a living sacrifice, holy acceptable.
Mm,
That means you're presenting your body as a stewardship. And so that's another piece of, um, you know, how
that's
are you
rich.
coming to the table,
That's rich.
being out, not being
That's
out.
rich.
Yeah,
That's rich.
that
And
can,
and that just made me think about just for today, for example, my mother was feeling really weak because of this COVID going
yeah,
on. And so I'm asking the Lord, okay, what can we do? I didn't want to call 911, even though, maybe that's an option. However, Bing he gave me these ingredients to put together. She's sitting up listening to replays of the Wisdom Challenge.
and there
So
you
like,
go.
yeah, and I mean, I could see life being, revived in her. So being a good steward of your body means you're putting the right things in it. And I have not always done that. So yeah, I think of beyond the transaction, taking care of, this person. Because if you
Yeah.
don't take care of yourself, it's really, really going to be hard to reach out and take care of others.
And that's where another part of good stewardship that comes in is how are you becoming skillful in what you do? And whether it's technology or whether just taking class, like you said, your mother's listened to the wisdom challenge. How are you gaining wisdom?
Mm,
You take those factors from all different aspects. There's a lot of gurus that talk about real estate. You can pull from here, pull from that, but getting those principles, those kingdom principles, and applying what applies to you, and then applying those to your daily working, just like you said, that I thought, because I seen your text earlier, but I looked and I said, oh, let me pause and let me pray for her mother. And I think that's another part, is having the ability to, understanding the gifting. Another
yes.
scripture, I'm going to leave this scripture, but it's in 1 Peter 4:10-11, and it talks about the gifting that we've been given. And so whatever it is, whether you're a speaker, then speak. So it's saying that those gifts, use them wisely, once again, because those gifts have been stored to you. How well are you using those gifts? It's
That
almost
is
like we've been given them, and we need to steward them well, but also as we store them, we need to share them.
that is so rich. Yes, share them because it's not just for us, right? The kingdom is not a not a solitary place. It's a place of family, right? We reach out. I like what you said about teamwork
Yeah.
because you've been a team member for me. You've been on my team to help in this process and other challenges that we've been on. So I just do appreciate you for sharing all of these, I'd say, golden nuggets of wisdom isms for
Yeah.
stewardship. And so I have was that the I have a
Oh,
couple
no, yeah,
questions.
no,
Okay.
no, that's it. We can go, you
Okay.
go ahead. Let's.
Okay, okay. So when we talk about stewardship, we're not talking perfection. So I just wanted to share, as a realtor, I've had a lot of failures, right? So people look at you as a, realtor and think, okay, you've got all this money. I happen to be a lion as well. And when I go to my meetings, they say, oh, well, you got all this money. So there's this perception out there that is not rooted in reality. So success, what does success look like? Does success look like you have this, that, and the other? Or does it mean that you've paid some prices along the way?
I
Because,
think.
oh, go ahead, go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. I'll finish. I do believe that you do have a fair price, because there are many wounds. Sometimes when we talk about being a great steward, that sometimes you see the what I would call it, what you see. Maybe you're showing a home, or your client just don't see it, or maybe just don't value the way you value. I mean, just recently, I talked to my client and I had their best interest, because I did not want them to be living in the condition that they were. But at the end of the day, I was wounded. And, that was a part that, I really was wounded, because I was like, oh God, I want to do the right thing. I want them to have a home. It wasn't even about the money. It was about, they needed a place to stay. And I wanted them to stay, have a place. So sometimes there are those wounds, in what you do. There's that myth that everybody think when they see that little sheet that you get all that money. No,
Right, right,
it
right,
would be nice, but it's not. It's not.
right, right,
You're
right,
running a business and you have everything, and then just like you understand, there's so many different products. I don't know how many products that I've tried that's just been a waste of money.
right,
Um, but also just the part of being a good steward, and sometimes it doesn't reciprocate on the other end.
right,
How do you manage yourself in that? And I think that's where a good team and having individuals that you can talk to, because it can, I said it to myself the other day. I said, wow, it takes tough skin to be a realtor or any type of sales, because you have to deal with rejection on whatever, whether you're in a relationship, you're in the process, and somebody comes along and chooses. Just to give you an example, I went on a listing appointment and I really connected with the wife. And so something said, just once again, I think, that biblical, let me call her, see how she's doing. And she said, Deborah, I'm just so sad. My husband decided to go with someone else. I wanted you. And I said, no, that's over. But the point
mhm,
is, she said, no, I wanted you to
mhm,
help us. But once again, I could have been like, oh, nope, nope. I said no. And she said, well, what can we do to get rid? I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. I said, you've got a realtor, that's going to work out, but once again, how do you become a team player in this, what we call sometimes aggressive thing is no, who are you? How are you stewarding yourself as you interact also with other agents? Because that's important.
True.
Because
Yeah, it's not just the client, it's the other brokers, the other realtors, the other real estate agents, the title companies, the mortgage companies. I mean, there's a litany of people that move and propel the transaction forward. And so, go ahead.
oh no, because I know in some settings whereby, you don't do that, but there's some agents that set such a bad name in it that individuals don't want to work with them. You're not supposed to do that. But once again, who wants to have a name like that where nobody wants to work with you? That's not a good feeling. And so once again, I think you're stewarded over your branding. How are you branding yourself as an agent? So, but there, yeah, I think that's important, that it's not always glamorous, I love all my little reality shows, but that's not real reality in some cases.
Right, right, right. And so failures have to do with not just not getting the deal. It has to do with sometimes we fail in our own business. I mean, we're not perfect beings, right? So I have had some failures. I've had some failures with owning homes and losing homes. I've had failures with owning homes and having to short sell them. I've had successes where I was able to buy multifamily properties and not able to buy. So I've been the full spectrum. I think I'm like full spectrum realtor in terms of failure and
Oh,
success.
I
So
agree.
yeah. So when people look, they think, oh, you have all, they look at the things that you have
No.
and not the prices that you've paid.
Yeah, yeah, I can go back maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. Me and my husband had set out. We said, you know what, we want to do something to help, individuals that don't have a place to home. So I went back to my hometown and I started buying home. I bought a home there. And, there was a program where you help individuals that they had a job. They didn't have a job, but they had money coming in. And I remember taking this family in, first 4 months was good. Oh my God. But it started to be whereby every other month I was going down to the court because they would not pay. And, once again, that feeling is you set out to do something good, but it ended up being a wash. I mean, literally, it's just a waste of my money and time. And that's where you talk about those times when you buy properties and things don't work out. You have great intentions, you helping somebody else, and then, it doesn't work. And so those are some of the things that you talk about that are true about the failures that we have. And then there's, I don't know about you, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, I forgot
Yes.
this.
Yes.
Oh my God. Or
I
because,
did that last night.
oh my God, you worry, you think of those things and it's like, oh, wait a minute, no, did I do that? I mean, just example, with that one that I just talked about, I imagine they're feeling bad because they didn't give the HOAs. Whoa. But those little things that, and sometimes, let's not talk about things that may have happened in the deal that you end up saying, hey, I got it. That came out of your pocket. So, yeah. And so people don't think about that. And sometimes you want to laugh. I'm like, I don't think people go to the dentist and say, guess what? This is that. I don't, wait a minute. But for us, no, you need to pay it. No, I don't think
That's
you go to the
true.
dentist. You don't go to the
That's
doctor
true.
and say, you
That's
don't.
true. What
But
level of professional
yeah,
can you go to and say, can I reach in your pocket and pull out some commission?
yeah, 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 yeah.
I'll just take half of it. That's all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I'm like, no, I don't think you can go sit there in the dentist or the doctor or whatever and say, well, wait a minute, I want to negotiate this. No, it don't work like that. But for us, no.
No, that's
Yeah,
true.
but but
That's
once
true.
again, that's where that professionalism and sometimes that value. And sometimes you just have to, you have to do because once again,
That's
or you
true.
see the deal or you see the bottom line for them and you realize, okay, you find that you're getting less than what you want to because you want to make the deal happen for the family.
Right, 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 right,
So, yeah, I love that.
right. Those are some amazing, amazing stories. And I wanted to make sure we included with stewardship not just success, because success always looks good. You know, people will share with you all the great things they've done. But what about the things that haven't quite worked so well? Oops.
We just talked about, I could think of times that I were definitely not a good, what we call being a good stewardship, but being also a bad stewardship, not doing what I should do. So I think it's important that we balance it out. It's not always good, but we want more of the great stewardship on this end. But that's where we, try to educate ourselves and, as we grow, and then
Yeah,
also be there to, educate other people. So though we may have made those mistakes, guess what? You don't have to go through that. That's what this refreshing, I would think about. Hey, we're
exactly.
giving examples of, hey, agents out there, don't do this. We want to save you the headaches of some of the things. I know about you,
Exactly.
as many years you've been doing it. I'm like, I like to glean from other ones because I don't want to make those same mistakes and
Right, right,
around and be
right,
able to share that,
right.
That's
And I'd
important.
say within that capacity, it's a framework of understanding that it starts up here instead of out there. So having a mindset that this is this is ownership, this is stewardship, and I can work in either capacity. I can manage the things that I've been given, or I can take care of the things I've been given and treat it like an owner, treat it like the gentleman did or the vineyard owner did
Yeah,
in Mark 12. He put a fortress around. I could imagine that was like a compound. I have a house across the
yeah,
street. They put a concrete wall around with a fence on the outside. So people that see it on the outside think it's a fence, but it's a 3 feet of concrete and steel on the other side. So he had to have
yeah.
some money. He wasn't poor. It's kind of hard to help people when you don't have money. It's really
Yeah.
hard to share, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to be
And
a
I
teacher.
think that was good when you mentioned that on yesterday about that he had money because he had to continue to send out servants. So when we talk about that, that's where the mind shift, because I have to be honest with that was one of the things that I learned about being in the kingdom. Picking up those principles is shifting my mindset. The money is not for you just to be getting for you, but what can you do to expand the kingdom, expand, how are you stewarding those gifts that you have? How are you making, like an example, we talk about buying homes or doing things. When you look at that scripture, he had to have money. I mean, he was continual. And then to him at the last to say, look, I'm gonna send my only son. Look, see, surely they won't. But it said there that it says that, what do you think he's gonna do? He was gonna come and snatch. They thought they were gonna get his inheritance. No,
Wrong answer.
wrong answer, because he was a owner and he was a good stewardship.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he
yes,
knew what he
yes.
was doing, because wait a minute, he had a mindset. He said, I want to do this so that I can give to what others. So
Right.
once again, if we started all over and said this as an owner and as a stewardship, where are you here? What is
Right.
your mindset? Do you have the mindset of ownership? Do you have the mindset of being a good
Right.
steward?
Right.
It does, and I've learned from being in different various kingdom principle, which some of us that you and I are in, is that it's shifting my mindset, and it lets me know, wait a minute, I want to succeed so that I can give more.
So you can.
I
Yeah.
also said, I want to make more so that I can give more. And so that's a principle that I've shifted my mindset. And so it opens up avenues for, opportunities that you are giving to others. So that's another thing, is how are you stewarding your mind?
Right. And I do have a question in the chat. Looks like for both of us. What do you do to build up your team? Let's see. What do you do to build up your team around? So I'll let you answer that
Okay.
first.
So here's a question. Are you, when we talk about mind shift stewarding, are you meeting are you doing like what I call the little pep rallies every morning to, I would say huddle? Are you doing huddles?
Morning
Um,
huddle.
Morning huddles to see what's going on, and what also, you may have to do what we call a little sensitivity to find out what are your agents needing, and how can you provide that for them, because that's, you gotta find out they're looking for. And once again, we're talking about being a team player and giving credit where credit, sometimes that's important too. Those some of the things you probably know more better than me because I'm like a single agent a lot. I have a
No,
virtual.
you manage other brokers, don't you?
I do, yeah, well, yeah, but not,
Yeah. Don't
yeah.
don't sell yourself.
No, I mean, I just manage, but yes,
Yeah.
there's different management, but I know it does take a great team, and also making sure you have the right team around you too. And then too, paying attention. So once again, how are their mindset as what are their personal goals in building their business and you working as a team to make that happen for them.
I'd add to that saying being heard, hearing, and I like what you said earlier, hearing what's not being said.
Yeah,
Because oftentimes when we work with clients, they say what there's a saying in real estate, buyers are liars,
yeah,
and sellers are worse. I mean, that's kind of the cliche within the industry. It's not true, by the way, Facebook. It's not true. It's
or it's
just
not.
it's just it's been said, but listening to what's not being said. And we talked about being woken up in the middle of the night thinking, oh, we forgot something, is because we really care about our clients. And I like how you said love. I mean,
Yeah,
love is not always a romantic thing. Love
yeah,
is genuine, compassionate concern for your fellow man, love one another. And so that's what
yeah.
I
That would be the key that I would say that as to that individual to ask that question. Are you caring? How are you caring and loving on those individuals? Because that's important. When you seeing, I just, for me, it's like there's no stranger. No one's a stranger to me because that's where I've worked in my heart and my mind to go to that aspect. So I like to just talk to anybody. And so, and I think that, making people feel it, they're valued. I think that's the number one thing, no matter what you're doing, is are you bringing value to individuals, whether it's in a family setting, whether it's work setting, any type of setting, that's important.
Yeah, right, right. I love that. So, um, my little backstory about waking up last night. I have some new clients that were looking at some waterfront property, and they had sent me a text the day before saying that they were interested in seeing this property. Well, with all the stuff going on in the house, being human, I forgot. I just forgot. And then about 2 o'clock in the morning, my eyes woke up. I'm like, I forgot to follow up. I mean, I like had a mini panic attack. And then I said, breathe. It's okay. It's okay. You're human. Forgive yourself.
That's
Forgive
right.
yourself. Let them know in the morning. Go to sleep tonight, which is what I did. Early in the morning when I did get up, I sent them a text. They ended up calling me like 2, 3 hours later and said, oh yeah, we are interested in seeing that, but it has XYZ and we don't want XYZ. So maybe we should, we had this conversation to where we, I use the term, I walk them off the ledge because they were ready to jump and go look at this property, which had none of the features that they wanted, which is waterfront. It had a little creek. So that
Oh,
was kind of like the
yeah.
short version. It had a creek, not waterfront, but the house was spectacular, all those things. But it had that one ingredient that they had to have that this property did not have. It didn't have waterfront. Well, some people consider creek waterfront, but for them, they did not. So it was one of those things where, and I think that happens a lot with, when you're thinking about others and you really have that kingdom minded philosophy, you really care about the other person. You really care what happens. And so just missing following up, it touches the heart. It just doesn't touch the head, it touches the heart. There's that connection because you generally love, generally care about the people that you serve.
Yeah, yep, yep. And yep, and I think that's important as an agent that when we go back again, that harness is over to when you interact with other agents, because sometimes, someone might have a deal that's closed or they're putting something on the market and they may call you, find out a little information. I have no problem sharing with them, but I find that they're just shocked that you took the time to do that. I'm like, really? I'm like, Oh, no problem. What do you need to know? I mean, but that's important because once again, at the end of the day, we all have, getting to the same designation, but still, I think we need to be caring and loving and all aspect, that's the key right there. Be a loving agent. One of my things is when I meet my clients, I said, you know what, I'm just going to be upfront. I'm a hugger.
Yeah, love is
But,
the key.
I hug them, but now it's like, okay, we do a virtual
Right.
hug. Okay, my kids hate when I say that. I'm like, no, it's virtual, mom. That's not. I'm like, no, that's what I do. I do virtual hug. So
Yeah.
I can't do
You
that.
literally do virtual hug.
I
Like,
do. I said virtual hug because and when we're not pre-COVID, I was a hugger. I always
yeah,
gave people up front that I tell them, hey, I just want you to know I'm a hugger because once again, there's that feeling there first time meeting you, just the walls are coming down. What
okay. All
this
right.
is
Well, I don't see any other questions, but I have a question and maybe you can give me a question. How do you steward people that are difficult to serve?
I guess I can use my example of yesterday because my client was very upset. I went to I'm trying to do the best interest for them. And I mean, he was very outraged. He was like, at first he said, look, I'm not mad at you, but I'm done and I'm totally done. And, I kind of was like, okay, well, what's the next step? What do you want to do? And it was the answer just hit my wound because it was like, I don't want to tell you what I'm gonna do. But it hurt because my point was I was out want to serve you. But one of the things that I've learned in our group is that how do you not take ownership to that? I mean, literally, I had to
Mm,
do like um, what I would say, just reflect and just say, wait a minute, I felt off. I felt like um, I let them down. So once again, you have to go and say, wait a minute, I have to redo this because wait a minute, I had a difficult client. First of all, that's not my issue. So I had to reflect that. Oh, wait a minute, take it off.
right, right. It's not
That's not my issue. I
not
don't know what, because it could be anything. And then sometime I've learned kingdom principle is that just because something may happen and it don't work out, there's a reason probably because you don't know some of the factors. And there's been cases where we've went into a deal or client said, no, not this. And then 2 months later, they called me, hey, we're moving.
right.
Something
You told me
happened.
that one.
But
Yeah,
now I have to learn is, okay, wait a minute. I can't take ownership to this. What's my ownership? I take full responsibility. And then that's what I said to him. I said, hey, first of all, I want to ask for your forgiveness. If there's anything that I've done to offend or did anything wrong, I think you just got to you don't go where they are at. If they're angered, then you need to come down. The Bible says what? A soft turns away wrath.
right,
Is it easy? No, because sometimes you
right,
feel offended. But once again, where do you take your offenses? I'm learning to say, okay, God, I may be offended for a couple of days, but I know I can't stay there.
right,
And then the point is, I still want to serve that client. And then sometimes there's not a connection. But once again, it's a mindset to say, hey, some deals ain't always good deals, and you just
right.
got to let them go. And so I think once again, having the ear, paying attention to everything is to say, wait a minute, ooh, this is one of those deals that, let's just get it to the table. I'll reach out, and go from there. And I think I've had one where there were, it was a situation that a deal went bad. And the wife was just like in tears when I came to the house because they said, oh, Deborah, we got to get another agent. You're good for buying. Well, I could have been stuck. But my thing was, you know what? They're part of my family. It's just a transaction that I didn't do. So I continue to serve them. I continue to drop them. And I think that was the shock. I continue to just shower them with love. Guess what? They
Yes,
end up calling me, say, hey, Deborah, I know you probably think we're stupid or whatever, but we want to look for another house. But still, it was like, I could have gotten like, no, I'm,
right.
mar- you know,
Because different brokers, different realtors would have reacted differently without having that mindset of, I'm serving
yeah,
you. I'm in the kingdom, right? I'm applying kingdom principles. So I'm not, even though I'm offended, I'm hurt. I mean, we're human. We get hurt just like everybody else. And we can still use that and turn around and serve those that wound us, so to speak.
Yep. And
I
so
love that. I love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay,
So
what
you,
question do you have of me, Miss
well,
McElroy?
one of the good ones, I know you share about, what your factors, because I know you've been into this kingdom, setting in such a while, and for a while, benefit you in your business. I know you do a lot of challenges, and I see the fruit of that because you're always giving. And one of the things I know you did, you were willing, a bonus is to help with these frameworks.
Mhm.
Talk about a little bit how that has benefited you in that piece.
Okay. I believe that when you refresh others, you also become refreshed. So that, and that's also in the Bible. I don't know exactly where, but it's in there. So in doing this, at first I was apprehensive. I didn't want to do this, but then the more I read about and understood serving and ownership and stewardship and generosity, I said, how could I withhold what I know from others? How could I not share? It's almost as though, I heard an analogy I heard a story about an atheist who is standing in the middle of the street and there's Christians on the corner and there's a Mack truck coming by. Now, if you're a kingdom-minded individual, you're going to grab that person and move them out of the way. They may curse you out along the way. Then when they see that truck coming by, they're going to be grateful. And so that's kind of stuck in my head when I heard that. I thought, how could I not give back since I've been given so much? Am I going to hoard it for myself, keep it all to myself? And I actually do feel refreshed when I serve, when I give, when I love, when I share. That fills me up, as they say. It just fills my, excuse all the background noise.
Oh, that's
That
fine.
that fills me up. I'm at home Zooming. It just fills me up. So I generally love to share. And I think that might be selfish by saying I get refreshed, but it's not because I'm giving it, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And I think once you start giving back what's been given to you, you'll be freer and you learn so much more. I mean, I'm learning from you.
Yeah.
I even listen to myself and I learn from myself. And I'm like, I didn't know I said that.
Yeah.
I go back and listen because, you know, God's given me the wisdom. He's downloaded some information that I'm like, this is fruitful. This is helpful. This is something that somebody, if they catch it, they say more is caught than taught. So we're
Yeah.
doing some teaching. We're
Yeah.
also throwing some wisdom out there. And if people catch it and they incorporate it, they can go far. So
Yeah.
it's not just learning how to do your ABC, so to speak, but it's actually getting your head up off the paper and changing the way you shift
Yeah.
your mind, where your mindsets are. So I know that's a long version, but I love to share. I love to give. I love to train. Um,
Yeah.
I have grandkids, so I love teaching now. And it's funny to hear them say some things that they've even heard, around the house. Some houses you hear maybe cursing and stuff, but other houses you hear other things, and then you ask a question of a kid, they're going to be honest. They're going to tell you
It
what's
will.
inside of them and what they've been hearing, what they've been hearing. So if they paired back something that's kind of, then you know that they're catching something that they probably shouldn't catch. So
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And that's important. You said it right there, that when you take on the mindset, the kingdom, that you get to hear his voice. One of my mentors said, we're learning. You talk, you ask, and then you listen. And I think that's
like
important.
that.
Last year I started that principle in my business. So I said, okay, God, what are we gonna do? What are we going to do for 2021? And he said 60. I'm like, whoa, okay. But even in the midst of that, I said, I'm believing what God said. And true enough, I did 60 deals, but once again, it builds up your faith. But it's that also that principle is, okay, talk to the Lord. The Bible says that my sheep know my voice. So
Mhm.
that means that's available for any of us as believers to hear his voice. And so the gift of wisdom is available to us, but understanding that principle and mindset, and also doesn't matter what field you are, is that God has a gift for you. And when
Yes,
you get that understanding of the kingdom, that you understand, oh, we're not perfect,
right.
you know, all things happen, but guess what? God loves us and God has a plan
Yes,
for us, and he still
yes.
wants us to extend him back to that scripture where he says, look, I've given you dominion. What
Mm,
territory are you going to take for the kingdom of God? Or you've been given the ability to do it, and sometimes we
yes.
put ourselves and think we can't. And it is a process, because I would not lie that I'm still in that process. If there's
We're
somebody
all growing.
yeah, you might have fear. Kathy can tell you, I do not get on. I am not person that
No,
do video
no,
or any of that.
which
I
is
don't.
why I asked you to be my
And I was
guest.
like, oh my God, look, and I'm looking directly at you, and I'm not looking at nothing, and I probably won't even. But the point is that I had to do that even from yesterday, is when I dealt with that client, because I felt sometimes you can feel intimidated by certain things. You
Yes,
got to say, wait
yes,
a minute, face your fears.
yes,
And so once again, your
yes,
mind got to remind you, no, we are kings and queens
yes.
of the king. And before I got on, I was talking about, let me put my crown on.
Where's your crown? Yeah.
I got a crown. And so I was talking to my broker, and she was like, girl, and I said, no, I have a physical crown, and I'm putting my crown on my head. She said, girl, you go ahead, because you are a queen. I'm like, yeah, and I have my little tiara to put on there. Once again, you gotta
Yes,
shift your mind and say, wait a
yes,
minute, there's one king, and I'm part of the kingdom, and I'm a queen.
yes.
And
A,
and you, whether you're a man out there, you are a king. And
yes,
understand that when we recognize that, we
yes.
recognize value, not just for us, but
Right.
value of
For
others.
others.
Because
Right,
we
right.
recognize where we come from, and it's like, no, there ain't no junk. God, no, there's no, whether you believe him or not, or walking with him, you are not junk. And so
Right.
in that shifting of our mindset, we realize, wait a minute. Oh, and it's not being overly confident.
No,
It's just knowing who you know. And
who you are and whose you are. Yeah,
oh, hi. And
yeah,
you
yeah.
understand, wait a minute. And it's a constant reminder, because those things that come, those little,
Yes,
I call it, it's
yes,
scripture talk about, they're little foxes that come to
yes.
spoil the vine. You
Spoil
gotta
the hen house. Yep,
pick those, no. Mm-mm.
yes. Okay, we are at 3:59 and I hate to like
And
cut it,
well,
but you have delivered amazingly. I'm so grateful that
oh, thank
you
you.
said yes. So
Oh,
there is always something on the side of your yes. So I am going to send you a, either a tiara or I don't
oh, you're
know,
so
some
cute. No,
sort of
I'm so
something like
happy.
that,
Oh,
just to thank you for
so
being
sweet.
on here today.
I'm just honored to do this, and I'm just like excited that you're doing it and seeing what the Lord is gonna do.
Yes,
It's
yes, yes.
it's
So this is wrapping up day 2 of Realtor Refresh. Today's host was Debra McElroy, or special guest, excuse me, special guest,
oh,
Debra McElroy, and she shared some valuable nuggets that you can go back and watch in the replay. And if you could do me a favor and go live within the Facebook group, this is a private Facebook group, so go live within the Facebook group and share your biggest takeaway concerning stewardship, the second pillar in the kingdom principle concerning real estate. So be refreshed, come back, go live. Favor is on your face. I know you might be a little intimidated. I know today I was like, I am not feeling like it today. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that we can get stuck, but it's in the pressing that we get the victory. So I'm looking forward to seeing some victorious posts on here. So thank you again, Miss McElroy, for being here for me, and tell your hubby I said hi.
thank you so much. Oh,
Love you, girl. All
I
right.
love you.
Bye-bye.